What if I told you the most shocking moment of the entire Sister Wives Tell-All was not a fight, not a walk-off, and not even an apology, but a calm, confident refusal to take any responsibility at all? Tonight, we are breaking down the exact moment that may have exposed the real reason this family fell apart. And trust me, you are going to see it in a completely different way by the end of this video. So buckle up, because this gets deeper than anyone expected. And if you love bold breakdowns and real talk like this, hit that subscribe button right now and join the fastest growing reality squad on YouTube. You do not want to miss what is coming next. The reunion stage was quiet, but the tension felt loud enough to echo through every living room where viewers were watching, because this was not just another end-of-season wrap-up. This was the moment when years of fractures, resentment, and whispered accusations were distilled into a single opportunity for reflection. And when the host asked if there was anything left unsaid, anything left unowned, anything anyone wanted to apologize for, the air shifted. Because apologies in this family have never been simple. They have been currency, they have been leverage, they have been withheld like rare commodities and offered only when strategically safe. And so when Mary spoke first, there was a noticeable pause, not just in the studio, but in the audience perception of her. Because for years, she has been framed as complicated, as guarded, as emotionally tangled in her own history. Yet here she was, calmly acknowledging that in a family this layered, there is always something to apologize for, always something to seek forgiveness for, always some misstep, some sharp word, some failure to show up in the right way. And whether that statement was polished or painfully learned, it landed differently than anything else that followed. Because it suggested self-awareness. It suggested that she has sat alone with her regrets and sifted through them instead of weaponizing them. And that contrast became even sharper when the energy shifted to the others, because there was a protective tone, a sense that accountability would only be granted upon formal request, as if emotional closure required paperwork and review. And while no one outright refused the idea of apologizing, the vibe suggested that any reconciliation would be conditional, measured against perceived offenses and long-standing grievances. And that is where the suspense truly began to build, because viewers knew the next question would be directed at the one person whose name has hovered over every family conflict like a shadow. And when the spotlight turned toward Robyn and she was asked directly what she might need to apologize for, the answer came quickly, almost too quickly. Not reflective, not hesitant, not layered with nuance, but firm and contained, as if the premise itself was flawed. And in that response, something deeper revealed itself. Because this was not merely a refusal to engage in a moment of humility. This was a declaration that from her vantage point, she has been operating from a place of loyalty and endurance rather than influence and impact. And that belief is powerful, because when someone truly sees themselves as the stabilizer, the supporter, the one who tried to hold everyone together, then any suggestion of wrongdoing feels like accusation rather than invitation. And so, instead of exploring the possibility that even good intentions can cause harm, she framed the journey as individual, separate, personal, implying that apologies are internal quests rather than relational bridges. And that framing subtly shifts responsibility away from shared accountability and toward private processing. And in a fractured plural marriage structure, that distinction is enormous, because the collapse did not happen in isolation. It happened through interactions, through decisions, through patterns that rippled outward. And yet in her telling, there is no causal thread connecting her actions to the unraveling, only a sequence of events where she responded to circumstances largely beyond her control. And that is where viewers find themselves wrestling with two competing realities, because on one hand, she consistently described herself as the one who wanted plural marriage the most, the one who believed in the big family vision, the one who cried when unity faltered and pleaded for harmony. And yet, on the other hand, the lived experiences described by Christine, Janelle, and even Mary paint a picture of favoritism, emotional exclusivity, and shifting power dynamics that left them feeling sidelined and unheard. And this disconnect between self-perception and external perception is not minor. It is the axis around which the entire family story now spins, because reconciliation requires a shared baseline of what happened and why. And without that shared baseline, every conversation circles back to defensiveness and deflection. And the reunion moment crystallized that pattern, because rather than acknowledging even the possibility that her closeness with Cody may have altered the balance, rather than conceding that her involvement in certain decisions may have had unintended consequences, she remained steady in the belief that she has nothing to amend. And that steadiness reads to some as composure and to others as denial. And that dual interpretation is precisely what keeps the audience locked in, because reality television thrives not only on conflict, but on unresolved perception gaps. And here, the gap is wide and emotionally charged. And when we revisit the seasons that led to this point, the move to a new city, the restructuring of family gatherings, the differing approaches to health, precautions, the visible prioritization of one household over others, each of those moments layered tension upon tension. And whether those decisions were practical or protective or preferential, the outcome was the same: increased distance, decreased trust, and mounting resentment. And throughout those shifts, Robyn often appeared tearful, soft-spoken, wounded by the fractures, yet rarely acknowledging that her proximity to power within the marriage might have amplified her influence. And influence, even when subtle, carries weight, and weight shapes outcomes. And so when the host offered a simple doorway to say, "I could have handled some things differently," the refusal to step through that doorway felt significant, because it suggested that in her internal narrative, the collapse was something that happened to her rather than something she participated in shaping. And that narrative is reinforced by the dynamic with Cody, because his own journey this season included a public apology tour, revisiting harsh statements, especially the claim that he never loved certain wives. And for a brief moment, viewers wondered if genuine accountability might surface. But the most emotionally charged apology was not directed toward the women who left. It was directed toward Robyn, where he praised her loyalty, her kindness, her restraint, and asked for her forgiveness, positioning her as the one who endured the most. And that scene functioned as a powerful reframing, because it shifted the center of gravity, placing her firmly as the primary sufferer rather than a contributing factor. And when two people in a partnership consistently validate each other as victims of external aggression, it becomes increasingly difficult for either to recognize their role in escalating internal conflict. And that mutual reinforcement can create an insulated reality where feedback is interpreted as hostility and criticism as betrayal. And within that insulated space, self-reflection feels unnecessary, because the narrative already provides clarity and justification. And that insulation was on full display at the reunion, because instead of curiosity about how her actions were experienced, she expressed confidence that she had acted appropriately. And that confidence, while admirable in some contexts, becomes problematic when relationships have demonstrably fractured, and the fracture lines have repeatedly been traced back to similar dynamics. And this is not about labeling anyone as malicious. It is about recognizing that impact matters, regardless of intent. And when multiple family members independently articulate feeling marginalized, the pattern deserves examination. And yet, examination requires openness, and openness requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires the willingness to say, "I may have been wrong." And that willingness was absent in that pivotal moment. And so, the audience is left with a lingering question. If the person who most fervently claims to value unity cannot acknowledge even a fragment of responsibility for its breakdown, then what hope is there for meaningful reconciliation? And that question reverberates beyond the reunion couch, because it speaks to a broader theme within long-term relationships, especially plural ones, where power distribution, emotional access, and perceived favoritism can destabilize even the strongest foundations. And as viewers dissect every exchange, every pause, every carefully chosen phrase, they are not merely seeking drama. They are seeking coherence. They are trying to reconcile the stated desire for family harmony with the visible reality of separation and estrangement. And until those two elements align, the narrative remains suspended in unresolved tension. And that tension is precisely what keeps audiences watching, waiting, and analyzing, because somewhere within these layered stories lies the possibility of insight. But insight can only emerge when self-perception and external experience intersect. And in this moment, that intersection feels distant, leaving the family story poised between what could have been acknowledged and what was firmly denied. And that unresolved space becomes the driving force of the next chapter, because as long as accountability is perceived as accusation rather. What makes this entire situation even more compelling is that the collapse of this family did not happen in one explosive confrontation. It happened gradually, in quiet conversations, in private disappointments, in subtle shifts of loyalty that accumulated over time. And when you trace those shifts back through the seasons, a pattern begins to emerge. Not a loud, obvious scheme, but a consistent recentering of emotional gravity around one relationship. And whenever emotional gravity shifts in a plural dynamic, equilibrium is threatened, because the structure depends on balance. And once balance is perceived to be broken, every small decision becomes evidence of something larger. And this is where the conversation around responsibility becomes unavoidable, because while it is easy to say that each person must walk their own journey, the truth is that shared systems rise and fall based on shared behaviors. And when Christine described feeling unseen and emotionally abandoned, when Janelle spoke about independence morphing into isolation, and when Mary hinted at prolonged uncertainty and mixed signals, none of those accounts existed in a vacuum. They were responses to lived experiences within a framework that was constantly evolving. And the evolution always seemed to circle back to a tightening bond between Cody and Robyn. And that bond in itself is not inherently problematic. Marriage is meant to be close. But in a plural context, closeness carries different implications, because affection, reassurance, time, and advocacy are finite resources. And when those resources appear concentrated, resentment naturally brews. And what intense their own dynamic may have contributed to the environment that others found unsustainable. And sustainability is key here, because plural marriage requires continuous recalibration, open dialogue, and visible equity to survive. And once recalibration stops, once dialogue becomes defensive, once equity is questioned without resolution, sustainability weakens. And that weakening was evident long before the official separations occurred. It was present in body language, in seating arrangements, in holiday negotiations, in the tone of conversations about future plans. And while no single moment can be labeled the cause, the cumulative effect created an atmosphere where some felt peripheral rather than central. And feeling peripheral in a structure that promises inclusion is deeply painful, and pain without acknowledgement morphs into departure. And that is exactly what unfolded as wives began choosing autonomy over ambiguity, clarity over continued uncertainty. And through each exit, the narrative from Robyn remained consistent: sorrow for the loss, confusion about the decision, insistence that she desired unity, yet no corresponding exploration of how her position within the hierarchy might have shaped the conditions leading to those exits. And this is why the reunion response felt so definitive, because it crystallized years of observation into one statement: I am fine. I have nothing to apologize for. And that statement, whether interpreted as strength or denial, draws a clear boundary between self-perception and collective memory. And until those two narratives intersect, reconciliation remains theoretical rather than practical. and viewers sense that unresolved tension, which is why discussions continue long after episodes air, because beneath the surface drama lies a more universal question about relationships, power, and accountability. When multiple individuals independently articulate similar grievances, at what point does one examine the common denominator, not to assign blame, but to understand patterns? And pattern recognition is not about hostility, it is about clarity, because without clarity, cycles repeat. And perhaps the most sobering realization is that cycles can feel normal to those inside them, especially when reinforced by loyalty and shared adversity. And breaking a cycle requires someone to step outside the familiar script and say, we need to reassess our roles and our impact. And that step was not taken at the tell-all. Instead, the script held firm, alliances remained aligned, and the perception gap persisted. And so the story moves forward not with resolution, but with a lingering question mark hovering over every future interaction. Will reflection ever match conviction? Will acknowledgement ever accompany intention? Will the vision of plural harmony be re-examined through a lens that includes personal influence as well as personal hurt? Because until those questions are faced directly, the narrative remains suspended between competing truths, each side certain of their righteousness, each side carrying wounds, and the audience left piecing together fragments, searching for coherence in a saga defined less by explosive confrontation and more by the quiet, unwavering belief that one stands entirely justified in a story where everyone else has already conceded complexity. And it is that unwavering belief that ultimately determines whether healing is possible, or whether the legacy of this family will remain a cautionary tale about what happens when certainty outweighs introspection and loyalty to a narrative eclipses the humility required to rewrite it. At the end of the day, this was never just about one question on a reunion couch. It was about accountability, perception, and the moment someone decides they have nothing left to examine. Whether you see strength or denial in that refusal, one thing is clear: this family did not fall apart overnight, and the truth is still unfolding. So if you want more deep dives, bold breakdowns, and the real story behind the headlines, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and join the fastest growing reality